Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Diversophy podcast with George Simons. Okay, so welcome to the Diversophy game.
Thank you.
We're gonna play cultural competence.
Well, I hope I'm culturally competent to some degree. Let's see what we get.
Well, you've designed the game, so we're gonna give more of an introduction for people who don't know what the game is.
Okay, well, I've pretty much designed the structure of the game, but there are hundreds of people who have contributed to the content, which is stimulating for me. Actually, I have a secret to share. The reason I create these games and these exercises is it's my way of getting continuing education. I get all these other expert people to tell me good stuff and interesting questions, and it makes my life very rich just working on this. And of course, sending it out there so other people can connect with each other on the same topics is what makes Diversophy really a valuable contribution to intercultural connections between people.
Yeah, nice. And we have many different kinds of games, and this game in particular, cultural competence, what makes it different from most of the games?
Well, cultural competence, as you know, is sort of the objective of intercultural trainers and facilitators and academicians who are teaching people about different cultures, doing business in different worlds, and so on. And cultural competence focuses on what are the skills that you need, what are the kinds of questions you need to ask to make really meaningful connections with other cultures, which of course implies knowing about your own culture in the same process. Now, all the games do some of this, but this game... Oh,
there's your arm.
No, I almost fell out of the chair.
Oh.
This game is particularly focused on what are the inner dynamics and interpersonal dynamics that help you to become more and more culturally savvy about your own and other people's cultures. And, of course, the whole objective of this is not just to know, but to connect meaningful with people, to bridge the difficult gaps in our societies and in our politics and so on, so that we are hopefully going to repair some of the violence that's going on all over the world and has seemingly been on the increase in recent times. So I believe it's a good game to grab things from. And as you know, the games are large, and this is the largest of the game. It has 500 cards in it, and that means that nobody ever plays it all at once. You pick out what you want to learn. If you're a teacher, you want your students to learn. You pick out what's relevant to their needs as well as the objectives of the course that you're teaching or the program that you're leading.
Yeah, let's have a little look at the first cards. So we open the game. You have the welcome to Diversophy, and then you can pause it if you want to read it. But what does this say in short?
Well, what is Diversophy? It's a gamified activity to create a safe educational space for us to connect with each other, and at the same time being pleasant, entertaining, and enriching environment as people share with each other and explore their diverse experiences. You walk into a context and your culture tells you maybe this is the best way to go about it. I walk into the same context and maybe I have a different version of that. And then when you and I share how we approach that, we get deeper insights into the meaning of both of our things and maybe learn some things that we can do that stretch our culture, build our culture. Remember, culture is not a fixed thing. To me, culture is like a river. It comes, all the way down from the frozen past that we got when we were growing up in a specific place, and then it's enriched by the various landscapes that it flows through, picks up this here and there, and makes its way and increases and gives more possibilities and so on and so forth. It's not a perfect metaphor for culture, but I do like the idea of it being a flow
Yeah.
rather than something fixed.
Yeah, countries have borders, but you can't say that a culture has a border, right? It's
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
you cannot say that about a culture. I don't think you can. But
well, the point is that your culture and my culture, I should use the plural, okay? We have tons of cultures, you know, and we have sort of some basic things that stay with us that come from our background, and then we have the things that our experience has taught us, and then we have learned as we move. See, culture helps us to sort of succeed and survive in the environment in which we live and work. So, when I'm in X environment, maybe my workplace, the rules are a bit different than from at home or in my football club or whenever, you know. So we are carrying all that stuff with us, and we should think of it as a deep resource. All the stories that we know about life and how to deal with it and successfully and succeed and so on are there for us to use and share with each other to build a better, more useful existence where we're at.
yeah,
And of course, you know, we talk about cultures separately because we lived in different bordered countries,
Yeah.
different bordered worlds, and the environment in one place is very different from that in another place, you know. If I'm from a desert, it's a very different thing as if I'm from a jungle. Huh?
yeah. And it might be different with countries that actually border on each other. But once the ocean starts, I mean, then of course it kind of ends. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, borders are cultural stories. We end here, you start there.
We speak a different language here from
Possibly,
this point.
yeah, possibly.
But then they have dialects and crossing
Yeah.
them. Let's see where we go from here. So this is kind of important for new players to know.
Well, the fact is, this is a question and answer game, and some of the questions and answers are how to behave, or what's the history of this, what's the context of this, and so on and so forth. Well, when we're talking about how should you think and behave, there's no perfect answer.
Yeah.
We give what we think is the best operating answer at the time,
Yeah.
and people may contest that or deal with it differently. So it stimulates the conversation of how do you go about this, or how do you think about this, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Always good to know. Hey, it says your name. About cultural competence, diversophy. Developed by Dr. George Simons. Well,
Yeah.
we just talked about this, didn't we?
Yeah.
We can go to the next card. Why not tell a little bit about yourself, George?
Oh,
In short.
Well, in short, since I'm going on 87, it's a long story.
It's a long story.
Long story, but what do I want to say about myself? Right now, I'm just fascinated by the kinds of new developments in neuroscience and cognitive psychology, which are helping us understand how the human being is composed and how we behave as human beings, you know. And I've said this before, but I think, you know, we're suddenly realizing that we are integral beings in and situated in our ecology as part of it. And for many, many years, we've looked at the human beings in a sort of dichotomous kind of way. Well, you've got your intelligence and you got your muscle, you got your body and you got your soul.
Okay.
You got you're the ghost in the machine. Okay, you're really the ghost in the machine. The hell with the machine. Well, the machine is you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The hardware and the software kind of.
Yeah,
thinking.
those kind of things.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So it's very important to realize that as integral human beings, we relate to each other and to ourselves, and it really opens up the fact that identity, and there's another game, of course, which focuses particularly on the questions of identity, but there's quite a bit of that in this game too, that identity is where you come from, it decides what you do, it makes your decisions for you, and then, you know, you can spell out the reasons that you feel exist inside your identity for that happening, which is quite different from what we've been learning for centuries about you got to get the theory, the practice, the essence of things, and
Yeah.
then we label things,
Yeah.
and the labels are solids,
Yeah.
and it's hard to label a liquid with something that's solid.
It's
you
like
know?
the river, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't label
The
it.
rivers keep on moving. Yeah.
It's all
Right.
one. It's all one thing. Okay, that sounds good. So this game has 7 kinds of cards.
Mm-hmm.
We got choice, risk, share, and smarts.
Yeah.
That's.
Those are the key kinds of cards.
Mhm.
There are some other cards that create little interactive activities between people that can be thrown into any of the games. But
Yeah.
the big content cards on the subject matter of the game
Yeah.
are those 5 that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and we're gonna go through 5 of these cards today, and then see how we respond.
Okay. I got an answer, huh?
Yeah. Let's go through them. You may ask any place. Yeah, can go to the next one. Okay, that is boring. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so this is what we call a guide card, and a guide card is a card which has wisdom about a culture or a cultural topic. And that wisdom is usually expressed either as a quotation from somebody who's wise, or it may be a parable, it may be a saying, it may be a proverb from the culture or the cultural situation you're talking about. So here on this first one, it's a very simple little proverb from, it's a Malagasy proverb, which is, "Strangers are not people, but gods for whom there was no room in the heavens." Now, isn't that an interesting little quotation?
Yeah, first time I read it, I didn't really get it.
Well, what it reflects is that in various cultures, we have created beliefs, positive beliefs about strangers. And this is a very important thing, because one of the things we're learning is that if something is strange or different, our first inclination from our protective system in our brain is to, whoop, be careful, watch out. And if it's not like what you're familiar with, you may automatically label it as bad or dangerous. So fear or delight comes from that.
Yeah.
And very many cultures, not just the Malagay, but very many cultures have talked about how do you receive the stranger.
Yeah.
And so, there's sayings like this. There's feast days in different religions where you set a space at the table for a stranger who may come, or someone who may be sent as a messenger. So it's expresses the kind of openness and welcoming that fights against our inclination to look at the stranger and say, "Whoops, be careful, watch out, dangerous, not like me."
No, the opposite one, isn't that stranger danger?
I don't know that one. Where's that one come from?
Oh, I heard it in a movie. The parents tell the kids, don't go with strangers. Stranger danger.
Yeah, stranger danger. Well, it's really kind of interesting because I'm a summertime, at least when the swimming pool is open and warm enough to swim. I'm a swimming pool fan, and what I discovered, for example, in the U.S., you don't dare touch anybody's kids, even if they come up to you. Okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and then what happened is I moved to different countries, and here in France, and the kids are all over me. Okay, there's not this kind of fear that. I mean, I'm very much involved in the men's movement, for example, and one of the things that has been really frustrating is the fact that very often if a man is walking his kid or his daughter in the park, people look on him suspiciously as if he's a pervert.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If a woman's walking, no problem, okay? But if a guy's walking his little girl or something, there's a tendency on the part of a lot of people in certain cultures to say, "Whoops, dangerous." Okay?
Yeah, that is strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't you dare touch my kids.
Also, let's look at all the strangers as as gods. I think it's a good.
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever your conception of gods is, but in other words, an elevated being, a privilege. It's a privilege to receive a stranger,
Yeah.
and hopefully an enrichment.
Okay.
So yeah, so in these guide cards, I would respond to something like that, and you and other people in the group would
Yeah, the whole team
give their
responds.
impression of how hospitality, for example, is handled in their own culture, and so on.
Yeah, and anyone can respond, but it's not that they have to, right?
Yeah,
It's not forbidden. Okay, next card.
yeah. So this is
I'll
called.
read this one. Doing what you can do as a manager to lessen the stress on individuals and groups under your supervision is likely to reduce ethnic and cultural tension as well, even if the stress is unrelated to cultural issues. True or false, George?
Well, it's very true in my perspective, because what we're saying here is if I'm stressed out, anything which interrupts me, gets in my way, somebody comes along, I'm likely to have a negative reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have negative reactions to people, we often express them in terms of something about them, about their culture, about their behavior that we don't like.
Yeah, this is a beautiful lesson.
Yeah, it's an important lesson.
I think you got it correct here. Let's look at the answer.
Let's look at the answer, sure.
Hey.
Got it. Under stress, individuals tend to revert to their earliest learned values and survival behaviors. That's the theory of it, okay? Their tolerance for people different from them is reduced, and they're often likely to blame these people for the discomfort they're currently experiencing. Okay?
It's kind of that stranger story again.
Yeah, you're in my space now in a negative way.
Yeah.
You know.
Something's going wrong. You're the new guy. It must be you.
Yeah. Or you're just around and you're bothering me, and you're part of the bad story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by reducing the cultural or the intercultural issues, you also can reduce stress. Is that the lesson here? Or?
Well, I think it works both ways. If you've really done a good job of managing your diversity and connecting the people in your organization across their differences, they're far less likely to blame these other people. They may even go to them for help in the time of stress. See, time of stress tends to close us in on ourselves and separate us from others. And one of the ways of managing stress very often is to be able to open the door and talk to somebody, get somebody else in, get another perspective, use resources and ideas that come from those people around you. So it's
beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see what we have. Okay.
And that's of course a matter of cultural competence, which is saying I know how to manage stress by taking advantage of rather than having problems with the differences of the people around me.
Yeah. How does this card work? The risk card.
Yeah, risk cards are basically situations that you find yourself in, usually in a different culture or a different circumstance or a different context than you would normally find yourself. And they raise the question of, okay, what do you do now? How do you perceive this? What do you do now? So this is a good example of one. You violated what would be an unimportant rule in your own culture, only to discover that this rule is taken far more seriously in the culture you're presently working in. Now you must pay for the consequences of this mistake, as you have lost considerable credibility with your new colleagues. Well, this is set sort of in a work situation, but it could be any place in life where...
At the dinner table.
Huh?
The dinner table.
At the dinner table, yeah, parking your car, okay? I mean, you look at parking in France and you look at parking in Germany, and you've got two different things, huh?
Oh, actually,
No,
I don't. Okay, tell me. I don't know the differences.
Well, I'm saying, people take advantage of. Well, let me put it this way: if you don't want somebody to park on the sidewalk, you construct a railing at the street side. Yeah, really. You can put up all the no parking signs you want. And if somebody needs to go to this place and it's right across the street, they'll just pull up on the sidewalk and.
This is France.
Yeah. We're getting tougher on it right now in France, but that's fundamentally been the experience here.
They have all these poles, right?
We put up rails and poles and stuff to keep people from doing that. I mean, it's also a bit about security of people on the sidewalks and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, it's how careful are you about certain laws, and how careless are you about certain laws that may exist, unimportant rules in your culture, but very important to the people in the other culture.
What would you say in this situation, written on the card? Do you apologize, or?
Well, that's interesting. If you must pay for the consequences of this mistake, so in a certain culture, you're going to get a ticket on the window which says you have to pay €50 or $50 or £50 to not have your driver's license suspended or something like that. In the workplace, it's often about communication skills. In other words, what do you talk about? All right, how personal do you get, perhaps, or how close do you get to other people? All kinds of things about communication can be quite different.
Yeah. I
mean, I remember I used to do some training at Management Center Europe, and we'd have a little break in the afternoon, with some things to chomp on and something to drink, and people would be from all the different courses in the university or in the institute would be down around the table there, and it was always funny for me to see, for example, there would be an Arab talking to a Brit, and literally the Arab would be chasing the Brit around the room. He'd be getting closer, the Brit would be backing off. He'd be getting closer, the Brit would be backing off. See, and neither one of them were. And
it's a personal space.
Personal space issue. See, and maybe in the Arab at one point says to maybe, this guy really want to talk to me, and the Brit is probably saying to myself, well, this guy seems interested, but boy, he's really invading my space.
So they're dancing.
So they dance all around the room. I've seen that happen again and again and again.
That's hilarious.
So, but you can take most of the dimensions of communication. What kind of words do you use? What kind of, at what moment is those languages that have personal and formal versions, like in French, I say you, I say tu. That's
you informal.
When we have close connection, or family or kids, or you talk to your dog that way too.
Okay.
And then on the other hand, I say vous in most formal situations and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And I can remember when I first moved to France, there were people whom I talked to regularly, and what happened was that we became closer and closer and closer and closer, and it took one person I had one person who I hung out with from time to time, who was good at English and French, pretty much, and taught me, corrected my French. I asked this person to correct my French regularly, and she did so. And I recall it was almost 2 years before she ever said tu to me.
Really? 2 years?
Yeah. Even though, we were interacting every few days.
Was there an age difference as well? Or?
That can be an issue, as well.
Because usually to people who are older than you, you tend to use the formal version of you.
In many languages, yes. So, it could be a simple thing like that. You start dealing with everybody too informally or too formally.
Too informal.
They take either way. And
or too formal.
Yeah, and they take, for them it's a little hesitating, a problem, okay?
Yeah. So not only your cultural skills, but also your communication skills will come in handy in
Yeah,
these
yeah.
kinds of situations.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, that's it.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's see what we have.
See what's next. Ooh,
Oh,
I love this
it's a
one.
question about language. Bilingualism is the result of reluctance to learn the country's language. True or false?
Well, it's absolute nonsense, but very often, you know, if you're speaking to someone who's speaking to you in a second language, you tend to think that, well, aren't they learning, or
Are you lazy?
Are you lazy, or you don't speak very well? You're not very intelligent. Often the idea is that that the person who speaks with an accent is not very intelligent.
Mhm.
There's another card, and
It
I
happens a
know
lot.
that
Yeah.
this game or in another game that we have, but the point of the other card is that a person who speaks with a heavy accent is a person who is less intelligent, okay? And the fact of the matter is, everybody speaks with a heavy accent. Depends on the perspective of the person you're speaking to.
Yeah, I guess. I speak English with a Dutch accent, and I speak Dutch with a Dutch accent, I guess.
There you are, yes.
A heavy Dutch one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can be very fluent in a language and still people can sort of pick up. It's always fun, I find, when I'm traveling, or even when I was first living here in France, that people say, you have a bit of an accent, where are you from? And so I sort of tease them along.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I have a fun thing that I do. Usually they guess that I'm either German or Scandinavian or something from my accent.
Oh, that's pretty good. Not as far as the States.
No, see. So at any rate, then I tease them and I say, no, I'm not from English. I'm from a country where half the people speak Spanish and half the people speak English. I said, well, it used to be a country. It was called the Bear Republic.
What?
And it's called California. Actually, I think the maternal language is now exceeded slightly 50% as Spanish in California.
Really?
Well, we stole it from the Mexicans anyway, you know.
Yeah, I guess.
The Americans. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that.
At any rate, having bilingualism, that's an advantage.
So see what the card says. Oh, it's false. You're correct. It's a personal and intellectual accomplishment. Yeah.
It is a personal and intellectual accomplishment. Monolingual U.S. Americans, for example, have a lower grade point average than most Asian and European nationalities. Fluent bilinguals in these nations also have significantly higher math scores than English monolinguals.
Oh, would you look at that?
Yeah, there's interesting research about
Not too bad. Would you consider yourself a bilingual or?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, multilingual. I mean, I probably speak better German than I do French.
Oh, yeah, really? Oh.
Yeah, as I learned German and lived in Germany earlier in my life, and you know. But then again, there's all kinds of dialects and stuff.
When are you officially bilingual? Like, when you dream in a different language? Is that or?
Oh, well, that's an interesting fact. I mean, I've done that. I'm sure you've done that.
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
But you know, it means that I guess to me, bilingual is when you can move along fluently and comfortably.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens to me, and I really have a good time. I may be watching a German. I'm living in France, okay, and I'm watching a German movie on TV or on the internet, or video or something like that. And the telephone rings, and I reach over and I pick it up and I say, "Hallo, Herr Simons on apparat." Whoa, you know, bonsoir, c'est Monsieur Simon.
Oh yeah, you have to switch.
And then it turns it's an English-speaking person.
Oh yeah, it's English.
But at any rate, you know, in other words, there's sort of you know your mind gets into you get into the flow. And unless you don't know a word, you know, and you stop, then you start thinking back into your own language.
Yeah.
But to me, fluency is the ability to stay for lengths of thinking or conversation in the other language other than your maternal language.
Yeah. So for instance, when I'm learning a language, when I was learning Japanese, I would often mix it with Polish, which I was also learning at the time.
Yeah.
So those were the languages that I was learning at the moment, and I was mixing the words very often, but never with English or Dutch, because Dutch and English I was already mixing those two up with each other because they're more in the fluent section of my brain, or I don't know how it works, but I don't know, I'm not an expert on it.
Yeah.
But they don't never crossed over. I always was mixing Polish and Japanese to each other, and English and Dutch, but they didn't live in the same space. Because the one I was learning, the other one.
Yeah. It's almost like you have a mess of train tracks in your neurons. You know, you're going down this way, and whoop, okay, got to switch tracks. You know, and
card about language. There are many of these, right? Many language cards. Okay.
What are we doing here?
Well, I think we're getting to the last one here. A share card. Diverse a share. What kind of card is this?
Well, these cards talk about how people in different cultures behave, and ask you to compare your culture or to tell how your culture behaves in a certain domain. So, for example, this card says, how do people in your culture normally spend their holidays, and what are your preferences?
I like it.
Yeah. Well, the fact is it's a tough card to answer because, in which of my cultures...
well, this card is really nice if you're playing with a very diverse group.
Yeah.
And then you hear all these things like, really? Is that a holiday? Like.
Well, one of the things that absolutely drives me nuts, as I say, my background is U.S. American, although I've lived outside of the U.S. longer than I've lived in it. Mm-hmm. But, the roots are there and the foundation is there. But what really, really annoys me terribly is that my American friends and colleagues, they take 2-week vacations in Europe, okay? Which means they spend the first day flying, the second day sleeping, then they get ready then they got 4 or 5 days to mess around, and then in each week, and then they go home, I always feel like...
It's too short, right?
Too short, and I don't know why, because it's so... I think, personally, one of the reasons that I do know why is that U.S. Americans have been used to far shorter work vacations than people in many other, at least in European countries, have been. Okay, so we have longer working hours and longer working days, and less holiday times. Okay, so when a holiday comes, the Americans blast for a day or two, and that's it. And for example, right now at this season, we're just ending up what we call the spring school vacations in France, which are a couple of weeks, generally after or around Easter. And actually, the interesting thing that happened in France was that in many places these are not synchronous. In other words, you live in this part of France, it's these days, and then maybe in another part of France it overlaps with that, but it has these other days before or after, and so on.
It is fluid holidays or something, or?
No, it's regional.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and what that does is a very good thing because it somehow reduces traffic for once.
Means that the whole country doesn't go on holiday at once.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have something similar too. Yeah.
You have that too in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Speaking of my holiday when I was a little kid, we always went with the car to France on a camping for 3 weeks.
There you go.
Every summer we did that. Packed the car full of stuff. Hope the battery worked. Start the car. And drove to France like somewhere in the middle, and then we did that every year. It was really nice.
Yeah, and the other part of it is that one of the things I noticed from U.S. Americans is that they tend to hit the high spots and some of the monuments and the shopping and stuff like that.
Like the Eiffel Tower?
But to me, a real holiday is getting to know the locals.
Oh, yeah.
Getting myself in a place even if it is just for a week or two.
Like rural.
One of my habits, I have to honestly say, I haven't taken many vacations in my life, but having worked in 55 countries and visited over 70, what I do, is if I have a job in Indonesia, okay, well, at least in the old days, I used to fly to Singapore, spend a couple days in Singapore, eat some good laksa lemak on the street, and then head down to Jakarta or wherever I was going to be working. And, you know, I'd spend my couple weeks working there. On the weekends, I'd find somebody to take me around and see the local area and meet local people, you know, and that sort of thing. And it's a challenge. So, I mean, language can also be the challenge here, but generally speaking, you find people who you can connect with locally in one context or another. You know, many of the places you visit, the people are, they see you as strangers, you know, and you know, maybe you're gods, or maybe you just have some money to spend. But you can get good handling or good tips and stuff from the and you know, it's about you need to know a little bit about the culture in that regard, because in some places, for example, if I'm standing on a street corner looking at a map, people will walk right up to me and say, "How can I help you?" You know, and then in other cultures, like in the Netherlands, people won't walk up to me, generally speaking, and say, "How can I help you?" No. But if I just say, "Excuse me, sir," "Yes, how can I help you?" You know, it comes immediately. But it's
you have to know that.
I have to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, you should Google that before you go to a
well,
before you go to a country. Google that.
Too many things in life to Google. Google them all, you know.
Google them all.
It's bad enough just finding the recipes for the food that I ate over there, and I'd like to try it here at home again. But how can I find it? You know.
Well, for the listeners, if you Google one thing, Google diversophy.
There you go. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. For the listeners, this is the last card. So, for the listeners, what do they have to do if they want to play such a game, and what kind of people would this game work for?
Well, we have, as you know, well over 100 games, and we've got up to 13 languages represented in the series. So, basic thing is, if people are interested in learning about another culture or another cultural or political or social situation, is to look at the card series and see which one's in there. Yeah. Each on our website, each card has a description of, each game has a description of what it's about, who created it, and how it's useful. So that's very, very helpful. And generally speaking, our games are used by teachers, trainers, and groups, you know, various organizations who are working with people and differences. And we have quite a few games on how to deal with migrants and how migrants deal with new situations and so on. So there's a whole range of life in there, and we're continually building it, and you know, looking at one of our real challenges, though, is that I'm very interested in having people from the global south and more of Asia involved in it, because the intercultural field itself tends to have been kind of locked into the colonial powers and so on. You know.
We have to get more perspectives, don't we?
More perspectives and and that's what I love about it. Every time somebody creates a new game, I'm learning something else. You know.
We'll see where we go from here, I guess.
Yeah.
With many options, many games.
Yeah. So thanks for the chat. It was fun, and
I liked it.
I don't always play my own games, but this was
no, it's good, right?
But it's. And as other people have listened to us, I think, you know, their stories start running through their minds as we tell our stories.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the main part. That's the nice part about playing these games. And they're easily available even for individuals who want to put a group together for any reason. Yeah.
So if you're listening, let us know how you liked watching the game. And
Yeah, just go to www.diversophy.com, and there's contact information and information about all the games, and we're constantly building that up and trying to make it more open as to what you can get out of it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. It's a great opportunity to share our perspectives with each other. And if you're interested in raising more questions or have ideas about topics that you'd like to see addressed in this podcast series, don't hesitate to make a note and let us know in the responses below. Thanks. Bye-bye.